I want to be a writer. I want that to be my profession. So the best advice that I got was treat it like a business. It's unrealistic to expect yourself to be a full-time writer if you don't treat it like a career. And so I started rigorously writing with discipline, studying the market, learning how to market, going to conferences. I went to the 20 Books conference before I had even published anything, because I know networking is an integral part of every career. So I try to express discipline in my daily routine. I post on marketing channels, even though sometimes I feel anxious or shy or I cringe when I read it. I'm not an extrovert. When I went to 20 Books, I didn't know anyone. And I had published one thing on Royal Road like the month before. I hadn't read any of the popular lit RPGs, and I felt really unprepared. I felt like when you go into your final season at college and you hadn't studied all semester and you hadn't gone to class. And I walked into Vegas at 20 Books and I was like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Why did I do this? Why am I here? And it ended up being one of the best things I ever did for my career. It jump-started my career probably 2 or 3 years, going to that 20 Books conference.
This is the CritRPG Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything lit RPG, progression fantasy, and Royal Road. Hi everyone, and welcome to the CritRPG Podcast, the only podcast that is super generic. With me today is Sean Dunning, who is the author of Super Genetics, which is not super generic. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, we've had quite a pleasant conversation before the podcast even started. You can find it on my Patreon if you want. But other than that, I'm not going to talk too much. Sean, sell me on your story.
Oh, the elevator pitch.
You can take longer if you want.
Let me relate it to other stories, because that's kind of how it formed. I was reading 3 stories at the same time. Super Supportive, which if you've been on Railroad, you can't miss it. All the Skills, and Bog Standard Isekai. And I really enjoyed reading kind of the teenage mindset coming into power. But I thought, what if you took one of these, you took a character that was a inherently good person, and you put them in a dark world, a post-apocalyptic world ruled by superpowered tyrants, which is the complete opposite of Super Supportive. And I basically ran with that idea, and Supergenics formed from this concept of this little candle of light in a sea of darkness. That was like the imagery that I started with.
As you can see on the cover, by the way, the cover is gorgeous.
Thank you. That's Luciana Flightus. He's the king.
Yeah. Okay, I know him. Yeah, if you haven't checked it out, you should probably go on Amazon. Just click it. It's on Kindle Unlimited. You can read it. It's free.
And the voice actors are some of the best.
Ooh, wait, who do you get? Let me see. Oh, Daniel and Rebecca Woods. Daniel Wisniewski and Rebecca Woods. That's cool. Okay, yeah. So light, darkness, we got that, but numbers go up. Why do I care? What's cool about this book?
Yeah. It's actually kind of a slow burn. It's a coming of age story, which I always loved. And it basically follows Terry Fairway, who has grown up as the Prince of Wichita, Wichita, Kansas. But this is in a post-apocalyptic America. And you kind of follow his disillusionment with the concept of right and wrong. And his grandfather is the emperor of Wichita. And in the beginning, the story kind of opens with this grand super attack. And Terry slowly starts to realize that his family may not actually be the good guys in this fight.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the setup. I don't want to say any more just because there's a lot of twists and turns. There's a mystery element. The numbers do go up, and he does become powerful. It's a weak to strong, slow burn. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm looking at the blurb. Have you ever watched Mitchell and Webb, the sketch comedy show?
Mm-mm.
So I'm reading through the blurb, and it says here, the heroes Terry Fairway once idolized have turned against him, hunting him down at every turn. His grandfather, the ruthless S-ranked necromancer who rules the city, watches from his throne as the people starve and suffer. So, necromancer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this wonderful sketch by Mitchell and Webb where there's two SS officers in World War II. They're standing there, like there's like grenades flying, and they're in the trenches. And one of them looks at the other, they're both British actors, and goes like, Hans, have you looked at the skulls recently? And he was like, no. I mean, yes, a bit. Why? Hans, they've got skulls on them. So what? Hans, are we the bad guys?
I love that.
Are we the baddies? Right. So definitely, the fact that he's an S-ranked necromancer might have given it away.
Well, I will say, even though he's a necromancer, all of the people that he's raised from the dead are actually good people, and so Terry's surrounded by people that he likes.
But that means he must have killed them before,
or maybe they died and he saved them.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. And my grandfather in Stalingrad was there to make lasagna. Yes, of course. I'm joking. My grandfather wasn't in Stalingrad. He was somewhere else. But the point is,
well, when you're 13, you don't know anything, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's where the suspension of disbelief comes from, which is every 13, 14-year-old that goes through puberty, they have a disillusionment. Maybe their parents aren't the superheroes they thought they were, even in real life, right? And I think I wanted to see that on an actual superhero scale. If you lived your whole life thinking that your mother was the greatest superhero in the world, and then you find out maybe that's not the case, I just thought that'd be a very interesting dynamic.
Have you watched Invincible?
Oh man, it's on my list. I saw a couple YouTube clips, and I was like, this looks really cool.
That's that premise you talked about. They're also exploring that same premise, and it becomes obvious quickly, like very, very quick at the beginning. But it's very gruesome, like very, very gruesome. There was this one superhero show that came out a while ago, where I forget the name, unfortunately, but it was super bloody. There were like people dying left and right, like superheroes. Like right at the start, there was like this guy who escaped from prison, and he this spunky group of like kid superheroes tried to stop him, and he killed 50% of them, and it all fell apart. And like there's like guts flying around, and this guy's like ripping out spines, and you're like, what the fridge is happening here? And it's gruesome because like it has this like very, very stark contrast between like this like, hey, yeah, cool, this is like the heroes are gonna save him now, and then like everything falls apart. Very, very interesting.
That's like Worm. I don't know. Did you ever read Worm?
No, I tried reading it and I was like, okay, this is getting very, very dark.
I think I like the realism of that, where it's like, if you actually introduce superpowers into the world, the abuse of power would be rampant. And so I thought, like, what if you put it like a really good person? What if you put like an actually good person in a world of egomaniacs, powerful egomaniacs?
I'm going to make this joke once.
Okay.
I hope you forgive me. So you wrote Hero Fights with Monsters.
I actually haven't read He Who Fights with Monsters.
Ooh.
So I don't know.
I can highly recommend it. It's very good. The first 3 books are very action packed, and the later books focus a bit more on the politics. I think it's a good series, and it asks a question that's kind of like yours, right? So can a guy with really evil power still be good? And yeah, can you, just for the sake of this conversation, can you briefly spoil a little bit about like what's the really cool like gimmick in your story?
Okay, let me try and phrase this. He gets the capability to learn other powers.
Okay, that's cool. Okay,
I don't want to say too much.
no, it's a good hook. It's a good hook. Okay, but then you kind of went into it a little bit, but with you wrote, you were reading all these like these stories, and you then wanted to write a coming of age story that explored the same concept, but like, hey, what if this guy is like really good? And right. But maybe you can talk about Darling of Fate for this question. So why and how that book?
Darling of Fate, that was, I think I was reading a lot of power fantasies on Royal Road, and I maybe thought that I was writing to market, and I wanted to write someone who was kind of like a little bit edgier, kind of like take what I want, but with a kernel of morality. And so I wanted to do a lit RPG apocalypse where he thinks he's going to be a loner, and he thinks he's going to basically be the protagonist. But then he's forced into this situation where he has to be a part of a team. And so he's navigating this this dynamic of like, I don't like other people, and now I have to work with other people. And slowly he realizes it's kind of like a found family trope. He slowly realizes that he's actually stronger with other people. And so it, on its face, it's this kind of narcissistic power fantasy self-insert, but in reality, it's kind of, it's deeply emotional, and it's about him basically protecting his family in this apocalypse.
Okay, that makes sense.
And honestly, for Darling of Fate is it was a learning experience for me, because I thought I could write self-insert power fantasy, but I inevitably twisted it without even realizing it. I tend to write emotional characters, like the way that I see people, the way that I think people react in real life, which not all books are like that, right? A lot of books they write like fiction emotions, you know, and it's kind of like truncated on purpose. It's usually on purpose. I write things how I feel they would actually go, and so emotions in an apocalypse are going to be very high. And so I realized that like a self-insert power fantasy where the character is kind of like a blank slate for the author, I actually can't write that. And so it morphed into this the found family trope, because if you were going to write a self-insert power fantasy, then he would leave everyone behind and be like, no, I'm going to go save the world myself, and have no emotional connection. But that's not how I write, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the self that you're inserting, right? Yeah. I do know what you mean, though. There's a certain emotional detachment for most of these people. I just killed a guy. Well, that's not a problem for me. I can totally do that.
Right.
There's been a story I've been workshopping for ages now. It's called A Starlit Night. It hasn't come out yet. It hasn't even been written yet. But it's kind of the antithesis to yours.
Oh.
So what if you have a character who's like a clinically diagnosed psychopath at 15 years old, and he is by way of like lit RPG apocalypse, assimilated into like this intergalactic war that is being waged on the scales of like millions. Like think Warhammer, right? But as kind of like Warhammer, but like a little RPG. And this guy is in the middle of that, and the system that has prevented him from literally like murdering people, like his mom and his sister, are somewhere else, and he just gets points for killing things now.
Oh, so you
right?
just let him loose on the universe.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, like, so my question there was like, can a guy without any morals be good in a world where not having morals is incentivized? Because they give you, like, you know how they in World War II, the Russians, they started the war. They gave one guy a rifle and one guy a magazine of ammo, because they knew like 50% were going to die anyway, and it was going to even out. Also, they didn't have any, right? So same thing there. And if he gets the sword, is he just going to kill someone for the shield, right? Because he could. So not forbidden. Yeah, that's a question I kind of want to answer at some point, but it's a very, very hard book to write, I feel.
Yeah, because you have to put yourself in the mind of someone who would live not caring about the consequences. Why do you want to write that story? What's calling you to it?
It's complicated. I'm saying not the reason for it. Like, the reasons aren't complicated, but it being complicated is the reason. I like a challenge. I like challenging myself. For better or worse, mostly for worse, but sometimes also for better. Yeah, I just really like this idea. But the system isn't coming together. The main character's class absolutely has nothing to do with this emotional arc. So I'm like, why does it even have that class? Like, it makes no sense. Also, it's not exciting. Like, this entire thing is a garbage heap. It's burning. But yeah, maybe you can help me out.
That's the tough part is finding the cohesion. You have like a really good seed of an idea, and then it's like, how do I make all the trappings around it make sense?
Yeah. At this point, also after writing my emotional damage story for like 2.5 years now, 1.5 of which we're writing book 1 over and over again, I think I'm now ready for something more lighthearted. So I'm gonna
a psychopath in Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do that for the time being. I'm probably going to like write that like power of friendship, we're going to start a band in hell story instead, where it's about
and that honestly that's kind of how Darling of Fate manifested. It was like the power of friendship is a big theme. I love that too. I think it's like there's a quote that is, I forget who said it, but it's like people won't remember what you say, they'll only remember how you made them feel. Right. And I feel like the power of friendship is one that like resonates with people so powerfully. It's just one of those,
especially in times like these where we're all very disconnected. I mean, we're talking, right, but we're like not connected because it's somehow the mind can't tell, right? And one thing I always love about like One Piece, and one of my favorite manga of all time is probably Shaman King. Not many people know that, but I just love these characters who show up and there's a problem and they just don't hesitate. It's like, yeah, cool, I'll do something about that. That's not right. I'll fix it. And then yeah, sometimes at the end maybe they'll even give the bad guy a chance or not, depending on like whether or not like that guy has a reason to do what he does. I like characters that are like relentlessly good in the face of adversity, where they're like, no, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to do that bullshit. I'm going to stick to my own motifs. And even if they are kids, basically. But yeah, like Luffy never has like struggles with his inner demons. They would break the entire story.
He always does the right thing.
Yeah, he does. And that's the appeal of it. He just does the right thing, period. And I love that. And
that's like Beware of Chicken I feel is like that.
Yeah.
Like the main character, he'll always do the right thing. You never have to be like, oh man, what he's going to make a mistake and or maybe let his ego get in the way or, whatever.
Hey, do you think this is maybe because we've been used to reading these like morally gray characters for such a long time?
What's your question?
I mean, do you think that because we've been used, or because we are used to these morally gray characters, reading them all the time, that now writing a character that's just like relentlessly good is something new and refreshing again? Well,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think anything in life, culture, whether it's fiction or TV or whatever it is, it goes in waves. And I think there's always a very strong opposite reaction to whatever the norm is. So like in the 90s and early 2000s, there was a heavy kind of grimdark emphasis. And a lot of the big, like Game of Thrones, a lot of the hits were kind of grimdark. And now I think we're seeing a push against that, which is the cozies, the slice of life. Like there's always an equal and opposite reaction, right?
It's very interesting. Maybe it is because of the zeitgeist, right? Because like, hey, like right now the world's a bit scary. So I would much rather have like a bit of like chill times. And in the 90s, it was like people thought it was the end of history, right? But yeah, and then I think then flirting with a bit of danger was a bit of fun, but I think now people don't want to read about people dying and things not turning out right. People want numbers go up. They want success. They want that sort of stuff. I often talk about the German Biedermeier movement in the 19th century in Germany. After the 30 Years' War, there was like, oh no, wait, actually, I hope I'm butchering this, but anyway, you couldn't say what you want because like the dukes had just overthrown like the democracy, and you couldn't say what you want. You could just like hold your feet still and like not do anything about it. And people would just retreat into their own cottages and like make bread and like do crafty stuff. And yeah, that's kind of how people react to crises, right? Like this privatization, this going back to the nest. I think I have to ask you the second question though before we talk about stuff for too long. What's the best advice you've ever gotten as a writer?
Okay, I thought about this a lot actually. I have a lot of advice, but I think it all boils down from this one kernel. It depends on your goals, but for me, I want to be a writer. I want that to be my profession. So the best advice that I got was treat it like a business. It's unrealistic to expect yourself to be a full-time writer if you don't treat it like a career. And so, my past career was computer science. I was a programmer.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school. I studied. I practiced for the interviews. I did all the things that we know you're supposed to do for a career, and I got a really great career. And that's how that works. Same thing with writing. When I realized that I needed to make a change, I started rigorously writing with discipline, studying the market, learning how to market, going to conferences. I went to the 20 Books conference before I had even published anything, because I know
Mm-hmm.
networking is an integral part of every career.
Mm.
I can't even think of a career where knowing more people is bad, right? Now you're thinking.
Spy. No, wait. That's actually no, wait. um,
I don't think it exists.
there must be some sort of career that is all about keeping secrets, but we wouldn't know about it because these people don't know anyone.
But that's what it eventually boiled down to was I like to write. I like to world build. I'm an artist, right? And if I wrote only what I wanted to write, only when I wanted to, then I would never make a career out of this. So I try to express discipline in my daily routine. I post on marketing channels, even though sometimes I feel anxious or shy or I cringe when I read it. It works. So, you do the thing. Like, I'm not an extrovert. I think that I can turn it on, like, for example, the way that we're chatting now. But when I went to 20 Books, I didn't know anyone. And I had published one thing on Royal Road like the month before. I hadn't read any of the popular lit RPGs. And I felt really unprepared. I felt like when you go into your final season at college and you hadn't studied all semester and you hadn't gone to class. And I walked into Vegas at 20 Books and I was like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Why did I do this? Why am I here? And it ended up being one of the best things I ever did for my career. It jump started my career probably 2 or 3 years going to that 20 Books conference.
Oh yeah. I mean, just to say I can relate, same thing for the podcast, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying the podcast is huge or even fiscally stable. It's not. I'm paying out of the wazoo for this thing because, hire an editor. And even after all the Patreon income, quote unquote, I'm still in the minus. But I meet people. Right, I had an excuse to talk to all the publishers. I had an excuse to, meet Travis and John Bierce and Miles and Haylock and like all these really cool people. Some of whom I am honored to. I would be honored if they considered me as much of a friend as I consider them a friend, right? But yeah, I mean, if you want to be negative about it, I could either be an author with under 1,000 followers on Railroad, or I could be the guy that kind of knows everyone because he has a podcast. And that it comes more easy to me, but I definitely enjoy this connection stuff. Is why I'm doing this.
And yeah, exactly. And I think, you saying I'm an author with under 1,000 followers, I would say for now, and you don't know what kind of connections, what those connections will lead to in the future. A lot of authors with 10,000, 15,000 followers on Royal Road. Okay, there's this saying, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's like every overnight success. Shit, I'm trying to remember how this goes.
With the morning after.
No, it's like oh, it took me 10 years for my overnight success would be like, it's something like that, right?
Yeah.
And like a good example, I don't know if this person wants me to say this, but I know someone who has a very, very popular series, and you would think it's their first series because it's the only one on their account, right? But I know that they have written over 20 books.
Yeah.
And none of them were commercially like massive.
Yeah.
And so you might think to yourself like, oh man, like they got so lucky, like their first series took off so well, and like they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's like, yeah, actually that was 10 years of practice and failure and experience. And you know,
if you're really good at Googling, you can find Slaika's webcomic. It is not very good. I'm very sorry to say that, but it was not very good. I think they stopped it after like 3 or 4 pages. But it was a work of passion, right? And that's what counts. And that they didn't stop, that they kept writing, kept doing it.
Was this before? This preceded?
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This was like way before. I think their avatar on Patreon or on Railroad was from that comic. Shirt, same thing. He studied writing. He wrote a lot. Zogarth, Zogarth is an outlier in all cases, but
right.
he wrote 2 million words before he published on Railroad. And I don't think he will be mad at me if I say this, but he didn't grow successful through like quality. He grew successful through like sheer amount back when that was like a valuable success strategy, right? And it still is today. He's one of the top 3 read lit RPG authors. So yeah, overnight success is hard work. The 10 years before.
Yeah.
Matt,
I don't even know if I've. Yeah, I know he's got a lot of series that are like, okay, pretty good.
Or okay, I read that is one of the series of all times. Kaiju Battlefield Surgeon is definitely a book that I read.
Yeah, and your example with Zogarth, 2 million words. I don't even know if I've written 2 million words yet. You know, like I'm definitely getting close, but that's a lot of words. That's a lot of dedication.
Or was it 200 chapters? I think it was 200 chapters, which is like close. But yeah, that is a lot of dedication. Yeah. And well, Zogarth wrote that back then for the same reason he writes today. He just really wants to. And he writes it for no one but himself.
I would not use Zogarth though as an example to follow.
Oh no. I mean, like with all due respect, like he's doing great job, but he's such an outlier. And what works for him will not work for 99% of all other people, especially now that Railroad has changed.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a thing, and that's why these people who have been writing so long and wrote so much, why it's worked, is that timing is a major factor. Timing, luck, and the more you roll the dice, the more your chances are of coming up with a win.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, not to harp on you, but like you rewriting book 1, like I think that's not like if you wanted this to be your full-time, if you wanted this to be your full-time career, that's not the way to go about it.
Oh yeah.
You want to shoot as many shots as you can with a quality bar that is personal, right? But I don't want to put out poor quality stories, but I also don't want to put all of my dice, put all my eggs in one basket. That's the saying.
Actually, reading or rewriting all this the story has made me realize that I probably never will and don't even want to be a full-time author. I really don't. If that means that I have to put out work that I personally do not like or I'm not satisfied with, then screw it. I would much rather work this job that I have right now. The job is perfectly fine. I like it. It's not stressful. I have lots of downtime. If things aren't burning, if things are burning, it's very exciting. And I get to like flex my muscles and like be in stress mode for 2 or 3 weeks, which is great. But yeah, I don't necessarily want to be a full-time writer. And I don't think if you're listening to this and you haven't if you're listening to this and you haven't made like $10,000 in a month yet as an author, you should probably also not think about becoming a full-time writer. This sounds very derogatory, but I mean this as like, don't switch careers yet. Don't quit your day job yet.
Yeah. There's someone, I forget who said this, but they were like, if you can do anything else, if your goal is to make money and you can do anything else, do that thing. It might have been Brandon Sanderson. Because it is not a get rich scheme. I mean, my previous career is in tech, right? Like I live in the Bay Area and I'm in a tech field. Like if I wanted to make money, that's what I would be doing.
Yeah.
But I can't not be a writer. Ever since I was a kid, I knew I wanted to do this. And so all of the decades in between me realizing that and not doing it have like pulled at me. And it's like, you know what you should be doing. Why aren't you doing that? And then it's like, well, I need to make money. I need to get a career. I need to provide for my family. And eventually I had children and I was like, what kind of example am I setting for them if I'm not chasing my dreams? So here we are.
That's a good reason. Yeah. That's a very good reason. Yeah. Writing, it has a tendency to pull at you if you don't do it. I mean, I have not, my current word average per week is like, I think maybe 100. But I sit down every day and I write a couple of words. But right now I'm at this like really weird chapter that has all been plotted out and it works and it's exciting. And I'm like reading over it, I'm analyzing it. It works. It just works. I just don't want to write. I want to be finished, but I don't want to write. And
same.
yeah, it's.
I want all the payoff and none of the hard work.
Yeah, maybe I think I need to like reframe it in my head. I'm not going to write this entire chapter. I'm going to write this one paragraph, because once I get started, like once I sit down and actually start writing and I'm not interrupted, I can go like this. It's fine. But just getting started is the worst part right now.
It's all a mental game with yourself. Yeah. That's why it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate playing against myself. The guy sucks.
If we all could be like Pirate Abba and just write, 10,000 words a day. And
have you read Pyra's like blog like a couple of months ago? Pyra was like, "Hey, I just don't think I'm a very good writer," and they meant it.
The imposter syndrome strikes everyone.
Yeah. So my colleague Drew is Pyra's agent.
Cool.
And he gave me a bit of like background, like where that came from, and I can't talk about that obviously, but suffice to say that like everyone has these moments where it's like, I just don't know if I'm any good, and you're sitting there on like the longest commercially viable English speaking piece of like literature. It's like, I don't know if I'm that good. And you have like,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've made 7 figures on their series, and it's like, okay, if you're not good, then none of us are good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. I mean, we met at Dragon Con briefly because I was sick, but I met some people there. And this whole imposter syndrome thing is universal. I have met authors who are critically acclaimed, who are fan favorites, and they said like, I feel like I'm phoning it in. Like I feel as though like I don't know why people like this stuff so much. Like, right? And the question that always gets people is like, hey, do you like it? And then sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say no, and then it depends on the weather and the moon and everything else. But usually they say like, yeah, actually, I kind of do. Like, oh, there you go. Lots of people like what you like. Congratulations. It's good. You made something good.
I think that's where the reviews come in, like being a writer is, well, it's reviews, but also networking, because being a writer is very isolating. It's me, myself, and I, in my head, creating these imaginary characters, and you never know in the moment if it's going to be good, if it's going to be received well. And it can be very tough, which is why I love having met all these author friends, because one, it lets me see that everyone feels the same way. It's not just me. But two, I can talk to someone who understands the struggle,
Yeah.
Like you could talk to your dad or your mom or your spouse, and they can be very sympathetic, but not understand the kind of woes.
Yeah, this whole putting yourself out there. Yeah. My ex had this at some point where she started teaching fitness courses, and she had the same moment. I was like, oh, I recognize that, right? It's like, I don't know if I'm any good, and she had to like do this like test before she could like enter this like kind of prestigious fitness center, and she was like, I don't know if I can do this, and like, oh man, I only passed with 97%. I'm like, what are you talking about? But yeah, like,
is that the German need for perfection that I've
no,
heard about?
I don't know. Like, Germans don't have a need for perfection. We just automatically deliver perfection. That's just what we do.
97% shameful.
No, I don't know. Like, it's, yeah, I can make that example right now, but like, it's focusing on the 3%, right? It's like, oh no, it's same thing as like, oh no, I have like 150 0.5-star ratings on Royal Road. And then like,
and then you have 10,000 5 stars.
Yeah. Imagine your shirt, or Slaika or whoever, and your 0.5 stars must like range in the thousands, right? Maybe not so much for Slaika, because like Slaika can do no wrong for some reason. But yeah, if you focus on that, you're gonna have a bad time. Okay.
Perspective is everything.
Absolutely.
Can a team of has-been teen idols save the world? Find out in the new series Boy Bands and Dragons. When Neverboyland is sucked into a magical world, their reunion takes a back seat to staying alive. But if they can get over the past drama that drove them apart, they may find that even pop stars can be heroes. Come and discover your new favorite read, Our Comeback Tour is Slaying Monsters, the first in the Boy Bands and Dragons series by Kim Smuga Otto, dropping on Kindle Unlimited, October 25th.
I mean, talking about perspective and perspective change, what's one thing that you learned while writing that you do better now or would change in the next book or something like that?
I think something that I'm trying to embody is perfection is the enemy of good enough. It's one of the sayings that I'm trying to think about more so. That's not to say that you shouldn't edit or plot out or have things be cohesive, but being able to like let go and kind of sign off on something and say like, that's good enough. Let's move on. It's a very important skill to have, because, and this is not a dig at you, but like you'll never finish something if you're going for perfect, and in this particular game, quantity matters. And so something that I'm trying to work on is quantity with a certain bar of quality. But if you fixate too much on maybe like a minor plot hole, or maybe a character that said something that is outside of their general like lexicon, you can fixate on that and try and go in there, massage the entire thing back into place. But most readers don't even notice that stuff, to be honest.
To be honest, I would love it if there were a genre that is as accessible as LitRPG, that would entice me as much as LitRPG, and where people do notice this, because we have a lot of speed readers, right? People love to listen to their audiobooks on 2.2 times the speed, which I still think is a sin. But yeah, I mean, they do love it. They just kind of like want to like experience things. And I personally love
the junk
to like
food of fiction.
Yeah. And again, we're talking about Zolgoth again a lot this podcast, but he on this podcast said, hey, sometimes I want like Michelin star sushi, and sometimes I want a hot dog, and I just give people hot dogs, right? So that's fine. But so here's one thing though. The reviews on Torchbearer are either or Genesis of the Sacred Machine, whatever you want to call it right now. So people are either like, hey, this is like very layered and like it makes you think and requires attention. And the other like, what's going on? I don't know what's happening. Like it's just those two things. And I can always tell like who's a speed reader and who isn't. Because like, yeah, some of my like Drew, for example, again, a speed reader. He's a lawyer. He goes through this thing like this. And you can't pick up on all the nuances are like massaged into each single sentence that kind of give you a deeper indication of who the main character is if you're rushing through it like this. Obviously not.
Right.
So then, yeah, right. But at the same time, there's a difference, I think, between perfection and knowing for sure that there are certain major points that you need to fix in your book. So I highly recommend to everyone who writes to actually read through your entire novel again and give it a dab at it. If you're not in dire straits, and if you're not, so for everyone who wants to start out, my personal suggestion would actually be to write your first book as a one-off with a potential of expansion. Don't post it on Railroad yet. Make it a short one, 80,000 words, just like one arc. Really simple. Then look at it and write the entire thing again from scratch. Like read it, interiorize it, look at all the plot holes, and write it again from scratch. And just doing that will make you so much better, because suddenly you realize you have like a perfect before and after. You can perfectly say like, oh, okay, this works and that doesn't because of this, right? That's what you get by rewriting the same story twice. You learn things that otherwise it would take you 6 or 7 books to write, to learn. Because, for example, if you're writing My Psychopath story, right? And then you're writing a cozy, like Beware of Chicken, Heretical Fishing. These don't have the same beats. So it's very hard to see why that worked there and that didn't work there, but they have the same underlying structure. So, yeah, I can just recommend rewriting.
The piece, though, that you might be leaving out is that you need external feedback.
Okay.
A lot of people don't have that ability to like self-edit, and they can't tell what's wrong sometimes with their writing. Like if, for example, if you rewrote Torchbearer, but with no one else to tell you where they got bogged down or what didn't work, you might miss. I mean, it's very difficult for us to kind of self-edit. Maybe it's a skill, I think, and that's why like you can post something up on Royal Road and have it be like a one-off, and then delete that pen name and never talk about it again, and no one will ever know that you wrote this crappy version 1 of, this story.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah,
Maybe that's your book too.
I mean, I did. Definitely pen names are great. Try a pen name. I didn't. I should have. Whatever. No, really, I should have, but I didn't. So I think I might just I might change my name sooner rather than later, because like Maddox 3 is such a weird name to kind of you can't really put it on a book. So, and also it doesn't really tell people anything about who I am. Also, it's like a name I made by rolling my face on a keyboard when I was 12. So probably should like and there's many Maddox 3s out there, which you wouldn't think so, but like Maddox is like a perfectly normal like last name apparently. So I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, what's one book that you love and why is it awesome?
Well, I'll tell you what my formative book is. It's Dune.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. So the first time I read Dune was, I think I was like 8 or 9, and I didn't really understand it. Obviously. But I read it, and I think the sense of wonder is what stuck with me. I don't know if you've read it. You've probably seen the movie too, but or one of the many movies they've made. But for me, it was the blending of like science fiction and fantasy, the science fantasy genre. It really kind of resonated with me. I can't really pinpoint why. But I've read all the Dunes like multiple times through, and it's something that is like complex and layered enough where each read through I'm like, oh yeah, or I'll learn something new or have a different realization or a different opinion. And that kind of, when I read that was when I was like, I want to do this. I want to write worlds like this and make people feel the way that I'm feeling.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dune is complicated for me because I had to do it I quote unquote had to do it for class. So we dissected that we dissected that book in college. For my, I think it was like my last year of my bachelor's. We did like science fiction and fantasy stories. Oh no, wait, actually science fiction. And like they did the classics. There was one that was called The Cloak of Anarchy. Really good short story. But yeah, so we talked about these books a lot. It was really fun. But it also kind of spoiled Dune for me because it was like, well, just like try to read like the first 20 chapters and that's going to like fill your entire week. So good luck. And
sap some of the wonder.
Yeah. And then we talked about like, the map at the beginning of the book that kind of like spoils everything in the book, which is like really interesting. But yeah, why did you pick that book up when you were 8?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think my dad. So I don't know. My dad, he doesn't really read fiction anymore, but he did. And I think I want to say he was like listening to it on audiobook maybe. And we had really long commutes in the morning, and I think he bought the book for me to follow along, maybe help me like learn how to read better. And I just remember kind of like following along with the audiobook. I don't know. It's not typical fare for an 8-year-old, but we also did that with Lord of the Rings, which if you've read Lord of the Rings is like not an easy read.
No, it's not. Yeah. I don't even think it would sell today if it came out today.
Absolutely wouldn't.
Not enough numbers. No, also because like it is way too ponderous, a book written for a different time. It's
almost it has slice of life elements to it, but but there's like multiple pages of songs and poems, and it's
Yeah.
very whimsical.
Yeah.
Which I can see why it did really well in the time period that it did, which was a kind of a dark period in history.
It also at the same time alluded to like all these like Nordic or Germanic myths, where the ring givers, you know that Tolkien was like a renowned scholar of Germanic myths.
I didn't know that, but that tracks.
He was like a professor. He wrote like a really, really long, really, really hard to read and really dense tract about Beowulf. He was a renowned Beowulf scholar. He was a renowned scholar of Old Germanic, so he could like read all the runes and everything. And so, in Old Norse / Old Germanic tradition, you would have the longhouse, and in the longhouse, you would have your jarl, so like the king or like the chieftain. And when he would want to reward someone, he would give them a ring, right? And then this person would like show this ring as like sign of respect from the jarl. And this whole like concept of like ring giving and everything is deeply, deeply ingrained in Tolkien. And obviously also like the elves,
Right.
which are like, I think it's like a different race of human in Norse mythology. Like it's really hard to trace, but like the frost giants are also there. It's very interesting. If you want to read more,
I love that mythology.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've always been
great.
obsessed.
Have you read Beowulf?
I did, but that was one that was for school, and it kind of,
No ripping out
thing.
arms there. Beowulf is like pure power fantasy lit RPG. Guy comes in, has this like really cool band of brothers behind him, goes into like this place, like, hey, what's up? What's your problem? He's like, well, there's this monster. It's like, no worries. Monster shows up. He like rips the arms off the monster just because he can.
I think I saw like an animated movie of it, and so I get confused what part was in the actual fiction and which part was in the movie.
Oh, it's all oral tradition, so no one knows, right? It could be anything. Anything could be part and not part. There's so many different folios of Beowulf. I forget which one like the main source is today, but Beowulf scholarship is insane.
Interesting.
People have written about this thing so much. It's hard to comprehend how much people have written about Beowulf, because it is one of the only poems that actually, or stories that exist from this time. And it also then like informed like the Nibelungenlied and so many other stuff. Anyway, Beowulf kills that guy, kills that monster, kills the monster's mother, then goes out and kills the dragon just because he can, and yeah, dies in peace.
It sounds like a cool ass story. I think I need to reread it.
Yeah, you should. My favorite part of it is that was written in a time when like English still had like compound nouns. And one of the surviving compound nouns in that stories that is not translatable is the concept of the word horde. Right? Horde. Yeah, because like Beowulf isn't just like He-Man, like he's just like a strong bulky dude. No, he rolls up and he's like the best negotiator there ever was. And the way it is described is he shows up, talks to the king, and then when they negotiate, Beowulf opens his word horde and employs it to great effect.
So his mind.
Yes, there's the word Wortschatz, so word treasure or hoard of words in still exists to this day in German, and it means well, the amount of words that you know, right? So
that's pretty cool.
I think it's great. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. You want to give some shout outs?
Yeah, I would love to. I'm going to shout out 2 stories, if that's all right with you.
Okay.
I'm going to shout out 2 stories. 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 2 stories Cool. The first one, I actually thought about this because we were talking about player manager and how it's kind of underrated, underread. Another one is Game at the Carousel.
Have
you heard of that or read of that one?
The Game at Carousel, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
I have stories about that one.
Oh, do
Sorry,
you?
go ahead.
Okay.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I'll just say that it's another one of those stories that's unusually well written for Royal Road and for the genre, and a very unique concept that's done pretty well. There's a little bit of like repetitiveness maybe later in the books, but like book one, I was just like drawn in. Such a cool, unique concept, great writing.
Yeah, my friend Andy read that, and he like ripped into it in a Discord, and then he was like, "Oh, okay, no, actually, like, and that makes sense now. I retract everything." This just happened today because, like, for some reason, many of my friends are reading it right now. So Saving Throw, she writes, "So When Am I a Hero?" Also a great book. I can recommend that. She has gone on a binge. She was sick for a while, and so she's gone on this binge, has like devoured book one in a day.
You said ripped in as in like enjoyed it. Okay.
Well, Andy ripped into it as in kind of like, oh, what is this? He's Australian, but I imagine him saying it with a French accent. But yeah,
Sacre Bleu, what is this?
Sacre Bleu, mate.
But then your other friend is enjoying it.
Yes. So the funniest part about this is that Andy will listen to this podcast. Hi, Andy.
Andy, why don't you like it's a very well written series, Andy.
Yeah. He does now. After he got past it, but like he had to push through the first chapter, he said. So I hope you're enjoying your jog. Hope you're having a good time. But yeah.
So that was my first recommendation, because I think that it deserves to be much more popular than it is, but I can see why it's a bit of a niche. The other one that I've really been enjoying is still on Royal Road, and it's Manabar.
Manabar.
Have you seen that one? Yeah.
No, what's it about?
You should check it out. It's actually pretty popular now. It's like 6,000 followers. No, I think it's actually like 9,000 now. It's basically epic fantasy. And the way he describes it is it's a blend of Name of the Wind and Lord of the Mysteries. And it's got like a hard power system and a soft power system. And it's, I don't know. I can't do the elevator pitch for it, but it's like epic fantasy with a progression element. And it's very, very well written. The prose is, it's very poetic. The metaphor use is amazing. The storytelling is great. The main character starts off as a child and then grows up, but very, very well done. And it's becoming popular, like well deserved popularity. Right?
Yeah.
Do you see how many followers it has?
9,000 something. I've been looking at it. Yeah,
that's
9,492. Yeah, I'm gonna give that guy a poke. Sounds like
he doesn't need my recommendation.
Oh no! But like he has like written 4 things before. One of them being Dark Wizard's Case.
Yeah, I've never heard of him before. But this one definitely took off.
Yeah. He's written like some. Thank you. So it's Metabar, right?
Yes.
Because I thought he said Mana Bar, and I thought it was like about like people getting really drunk on potions. But
well, and it's really long chapters, like 1,500 pages, but only 60 chapters. So it's like really kind of immerses you in the writing and the world.
Yeah, I'm gonna poke that guy. That sounds good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, I think we're at the end of this episode. We're going to continue talking for a little bit after the show is over. Do you have any last words?
No, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here. It was awesome. Very, very nice. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening and watching. Please do like, subscribe, follow, all that jazz. You know the drill. And I'll see you next time. And if you're on Patreon, the show goes on. Sean.
Yeah.
Or maybe it doesn't.